El Lobo. In Mexico's harsh, sun-scorched lands, the coyote known as El Lobo had earned his notorious reputation through the darkest of trades. Born Alejandro Gonzalez in a small, poverty-stricken village, he had been drawn into the underworld of human trafficking out of desperation and greed. The year was 1998, and Mexico was in the throes of a burgeoning crisis that would soon be known as the feminicidio, the systematic murder of women and girls, particularly along the U.S. border. The cartels had discovered a new, lucrative market, moving human cargo across the treacherous desert expanses for the American sex trade. With his cunning mind and ruthless heart, Alejandro found his niche as a coyote, guiding these unfortunate souls on their perilous journeys north. El Lobo was not your typical coyote. He had a flair for the dramatic, with a tattoo of a snarling wolf on his neck, symbolizing the predator he had become. He had no affiliation with any particular gang. Instead, he was a mercenary, working for the highest bidder among the cartel lords. His eyes were cold and calculating, his smile as sharp as the blade he often carried. His reputation was such that even the most hardened cartel members feared his wrath. The girls he trafficked were often promised the American dream, a chance at a better life, work in restaurants or hotels, and the possibility of sending money back to their struggling families. Little did they know the nightmare that awaited them. The journey was dangerous, and Alejandro had no qualms about using their fears to his advantage. One such girl was Marisol, a 15-year-old with dreams as vast as the desert she was about to cross. One of Alejandro's recruiters in her village approached her, lured by the promise of a future beyond the crushing poverty that had claimed her mother and left her to fend for her siblings. Her family sold what little they had to pay Alejandro's exorbitant fee, believing the lies of a better life. Marisol and her sisters in misfortune, a group of 10, set out on the trek with El Lobo leading the way. They were told they had to be strong and that the journey would be difficult, but they would be safe if they followed his rules. They were smuggled in the back of a truck, packed tighter than sardines, the air thick with the scent of fear and sweat. The first sign of trouble came when Alejandro's group encountered the border patrol. He had paid off the proper officials, but his temper flared when they demanded more than he was willing to give. "You think I'm a fool?" he hissed at the border guard, his hand sliding to the gun at his waist. The guard, recognizing the coyote's gang tattoos, knew better than to argue. The cartel's reach was long, and the consequences for disobedience were severe. Once in the U.S., the girls were herded into a safe house, where they were stripped of their identification and possessions. They were given new names, lives, and a horrifying reality. The walls were adorned with the tattoos of various cartel members, grisly trophies of past journeys and lost souls. Alejandro made sure they understood that any attempt to escape would result in a fate worse than death. "You owe us," he told them, his eyes boring into theirs. "You will work to pay off your debt. You will do what you are told, when you are told, or you will regret ever crossing into my country." The girls were moved from place to place, often drugged to keep them compliant. They were used and abused by the very men who were supposed to protect them, and when they could no longer be sold for their youthful innocence, they were discarded like yesterday's newspaper. Marisol, however, had a spirit that could not be broken. She endured the horrors inflicted upon her, biding her time, waiting for the right moment. It came one night when El Lobo, in a drunken rage, left the safe house unguarded. With the help of another girl, she managed to escape, running into the desert night with nothing but the stars to guide her. Years later, Alejandro's empire crumbled under the weight of his cruelty. The authorities, aided by the testimonies of survivors like Marisol, finally caught up with him. His once proud wolf tattoo seemed to shrink as he was led away in handcuffs, a symbol of the coward he indeed was. Marisol's story, though a work of fiction, is a stark reminder of the very real horrors that thousands of young women and girls face at the hands of human traffickers. The coyotes, driven by greed and power, leave a trail of pain and suffering. The historical data shows that between 1998 and 2018, more than 2,500 cases of human trafficking were reported in Mexico alone, with a significant portion of the victims being female and under the age of 23. Their journeys are fraught with danger and despair. They are often subjected to rape, torture, and forced labor to pay off the debts they incur for their passage. Some never make it to their promised land, lost to the harsh desert or the brutality of their handlers. El Lobo's story is a narrative of the dark underbelly of human nature, a cautionary tale of the monsters that roam our modern world. The fight against human trafficking continues, and it is the brave survivors like Marisol who give us hope and the strength to demand change. They are the ones who have faced the monsters and lived to tell their stories so that others may be spared their fate. Ultimately, Alejandro's downfall was not due to the law, but to the indomitable spirit of the people he sought to exploit. One survivor said, "We are not just numbers, not just cattle to be bought and sold. We are human beings, and we will not be silenced." The historical narrative of human trafficking is one of unspeakable darkness, but it is also a story of resilience and hope. The battle against the coyotes and the cartels is ongoing, with international efforts to dismantle their operations and provide support to the victims. Yet, as long as there is demand for the trade, the monsters will continue to prowl. It is up to us to stand as beacons of light, to shine on the shadowy corners where they operate, and to ensure that the Marisols of the world are given the justice and redemption they deserve. In the words of a survivor, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Let us choose to become the guardians of the innocent, the champions of freedom, and the harbingers of justice for those whom the howl of the coyotes has silenced.